Kino pavasaris. Kovo 18, balandžio 5 dienomis visoje Lietuvoje. Didysis partneris Ergo draudimo grupė. Informaciniai partneriai TV3, 15 min žmonės.
Mūsų karta pirmoji supratusi, kaip iš lėto kenkiame gamtai. Ir vienintelė, žinanti, kad dar yra laiko ją išsaugoti. Apsaugokime mūsų visų ateitį. Ergo.
Geriausius kino pavasario filmus parodys žiūrimiausia televizija TV3. Šeštadieniais 22:40.
Festivalis Kino pavasaris jūsų namuose. Visus filmus žiūrėkite Telia televizijoje jums patogiu metu. Telia. Įdomiau tik gyvenimas.
The laws of physics. The laws of life. Laws connect everything. We think that to be legal advisors, we must live under the same philosophy. Adapting to connect and connecting to adapt.
Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for staying for the Q&A portion of Twilight's Kiss. I would like to welcome all of you, and especially I would like to welcome and thank Ray Yeung, the director of the film, for taking time to be with us and chat about his absolutely delicate and beautiful film. Hi, Ray.
Thank you. Hello, hi guys, how are you?
So I will just quickly start by, because I think it needs to be said, just to kind of give a bit of a background to the film. The movie premiered in 2019 at the Busan Film Festival. Then it went on to play Berlin in 2020, just last year, pretty much a year ago, actually. And it's had a whirlwind of international play, I would say. I mean, you've accumulated over 20 nominations, over 15 awards. So I would just like to begin by just saying congratulations on that and kind of carrying Park and Hoy's story through to the world for such a long period of time.
Thank you so much. Yes, we are very happy. Yeah.
So this is your third feature film. And more importantly, I mean, personally, I really see it as a very beautiful and sensitive love story about finding true love in one's twilight years. But especially a passionate tale of coming out in those twilight years of the title. And what I find very, very special, and it has been very often talked about this, is that it's the type of story that you don't often see being portrayed in cinema. Rarely do elderly people get afforded the intimacy that you provide them, and the dignity of that intimacy and of their kind of sensuality. But in particular, the elderly gay community is also very rarely portrayed on screen. So I would like to begin by opening up the question to what was your inspiration and what kind of made you, because your previous two films really reflected a more kind of young romance, and with this, your third film, you completely shift. I know that this was also inspired from a book, so perhaps you could give us more of a background.
Okay, all right. So in 2015, I moved back from New York to Hong Kong purposely because I wanted to make a Cantonese movie, because originally I'm from Hong Kong, but actually I've never made a Cantonese movie before. So I was looking for topics, which I think might be interesting. And then I came across this book called The Oral Histories of Older Gay Men in Hong Kong. The book is written by a Hong Kong University professor. It's basically a collection of 12 interviews of elderly gay men, mostly in around 70 or 80 years old. So after I read the book, I thought it was really interesting, and I asked Travers, the writer, whether I could meet some of the interviewees, and he said that, well, some of them passed away already. So that made me feel that there's an urgency to tell this story. So I met up with some of the interviewees and became friends. I went to their apartments and went out for dinners and basically collected their stories and then reinvent a screenplay, kind of reimagine what it would be like if they meet today and fall in love. So that's how the story came about. There isn't one particular character. It's based on any person, but it was basically a collection of their experiences which inspired the screenplay.
Hmm. And automatically we need to go from the inspiration to the casting, because the casting in this film, and rather the casting, the performances are incredible. They have such delicacy, such nuance, such passion and tenderness. I know that it was quite difficult for you to actually find the right people to play. So if you can give us a bit more info on that.
Yeah, I think by 2018, we were kind of like, we got all the funding together, we were ready to shoot, but we would not be able to find the actors. It took a whole year to do the casting, particularly to 2 leads, because actors of that age group in Hong Kong, they all started like in the Shaw Brothers studios, mainly playing kung fu masters, swordsmen, that kind of very macho characters. So a lot of them were very worried about their images being tarnished for playing a gay man. So a lot of them said no right away. And then some who said okay, but they have a list of things that they wouldn't do, like they wouldn't kiss, they wouldn't hold hands, they didn't want to be topless. So I didn't really call them back. So eventually I was able to find Taibo, and he already lived in Taiwan. So I had to fly to Taiwan to talk to him and sort of like convince him to play Pac. I gave him the script. He took about 3 months to get back to me. So by the time that we find Pac, I have exhausted all the actors of that age group. So I have to look for a younger actor and age him up, which originally I really didn't want to do. But we had to do it. And then I find Ben, who's a stage actor mainly, and but he has played gay parts before, and I thought he was very good. So eventually, then I did some chemistry tests between them, and I thought they were very good. So we were very lucky to find the 2 actors.
I mean, indeed, the chemistry that is being kind of slowly, blossoming between them is incredibly authentic. And I wanted to ask how much of that chemistry is, I mean, of course, due to you, but also due to their own kind of interpretation and dedication to the roles.
I think one advantage of this writing a story for older actors or older characters is that the actors has been around for a long time, and they are very, very experienced. And interestingly, they don't really get opportunities to play this type of roles with all those acting talents and experience that they have. So once when you actually cast them and they have this platform to play, they will very, very quickly get into characters. Quite quickly, I think. And I didn't really have a lot of problems sort of like shooting, except, of course, for the sex scene, the scene that when they have sex in the cubicle. I think Taibo, the one who plays Pat, was particularly nervous because he used to be in Jackie Chan movies, and all his life has been playing very macho roles. So for him, it was a big step forward. So basically, I just told him that, it's like a dance routine. You just need to practice a little bit more and get used to the other person's body. And so once we spent a whole morning doing that, and he was able to relax. And, in the afternoon, we were able to shoot, and it went well. Ben was more relaxed because he has played a gay part on stage before and kissed a man before. So for him, he wasn't so nervous. But still, it took a little bit of time to warm them up.
It's funny you mentioned that, because I personally also approached the film through Park's eyes and through his experience. And in a sense, it's almost as if he's rediscovering something, or rather discovering for the first time, something very true and very intimate to himself that he hasn't actually been able to experience. And this this reluctancy, this slight awkwardness, I think also gets almost immediately transferred to us as a viewer, because we see Park moving beyond mere cruising to actually developing an intimate, loving relationship with someone. More than that, he's actually discovering a whole community that he perhaps has been kind of deprived of his own willingness or reluctancy. So I almost felt as if the film is a coming out discovery for Park as much as it is for us to kind of experience the gay community, and particularly the elderly gay community of Hong Kong.
Yes, yes. I think, well, in one of the interviews in the book, indeed, there was a one person who I actually, unfortunately, never met because he passed away already. And he was talking about the first time he fell in love, and he was 60-something years old. So, I think for a lot of the people around the age group, for them, they occasionally would have gay sex, but actually for them to have a relationship is very rare. And a lot of them have actually never stepped into a gay establishment before. The only way that they could find sex is really just in public toilets. So like the character Park, for him to actually first time go into a gay sauna is really a big step for him, because it's also, in a way, admitting to himself that he maybe is not as straight as he thinks he is. So because a lot of these people are in denial, they do not see themselves as gay. I think there was one particular person that I interviewed who is married with grandchildren. And he said that, I said, so how do you see yourself? He said, well, before he kind of got around to accepting himself, he said before that, when he was younger, he only saw his homosexuality as like a gambling habit. That is something that he has this urge to do. But as long as he does something to satisfy it, then he is fine. He can go back to his regular life and just live, his life as a normal person. And this is just something that happens occasionally. It's an urge that he needs to satisfy. But apart from that, he's not gay at all. So that's how they deal with that, by not really accepting. It's really a form of denial, which I thought is very interesting.
Totally. And I think one of the other really good, not good, but powerful aspects of the film, which very kind of subtly, weaves itself within the narrative, is this exploration of the larger social context of the gay community. Apropos of acceptance, for example, the community support group that Hoya introduces Park to. There we see, a whole generation of men who are, in a sense, living on the edge of society, seeking recognition, seeking dignity, particularly, for their twilight years, which I think also has a more specific cultural specificity with regards to elderly homes, the relationship of perhaps being alone in your elderly life, removed from your family. So I'm wondering if you could talk a bit about and offer us a bit more context about that.
Yeah, it's very interesting because the ones who are married, what they have been trying to do is to belong to the mainstream society. But actually, at the same time, because they have been trying so hard to be in the mainstream society, they actually also put themselves on the fringe as well, because they have been so closeted and can only sort of like cruise in public toilets and things like that. So, and while you have the other groups who came out when 30 or 40 years ago, when it was actually illegal to be gay in Hong Kong. So those has been living on the fringe of the society for a long time. When I was doing the research, I came across this group called Gay and Grey. Basically, it's a social group. They meet once a month, you know, for dim sum or tea or something like that. And then they will go to a social worker's home and just to discuss, you know, or having a chat, you know, about lives, or gay pride is coming up, what they might wear for the gay pride. But once they talk about the elderly home, and some of them start saying that, you know, they were very worried about going to an elderly home because they might have to go back into the closet. So I thought the whole discussion was very interesting. So that's why I started putting it into the screenplay. And then one of the activists, one of the person who is from the group who is the most out, he actually eventually went to the government, and there's a conference called LACO in Hong Kong, and actually voices that, you know, his demand, wanting that elderly home exclusively for the LGBT community. Of course, you know, it didn't go anywhere, but it was very brave of him to speak out, because a lot of them would not speak out because they are still in the closet. So that's why the whole discussion I thought was very interesting. And that particular activist, I invited him to be part of the movie. And he said, yes, okay. So we did a screen test and he's great. So eventually I cast him, and he's the guy who plays Dior in the movie. Sure. So he was actually himself. He's not an actor.
And by the way, because Chui also mentions the stigma that followed him after appearing on TV during the Pride Parade.
Yes.
Apropos this.
Yeah. I think also one of the person that I interviewed, he also a previous year, he went to the gay pride, and then afterwards that all his neighbors kind of like didn't speak to him again. And for them, it's very sad because they have already been rejected by their family many, many years ago. So for them, their main, you know, sort of support group are just their gay friends and their neighbors. But because when this particular guy that I interviewed was outed, his neighbors started gossiping about him, and he became alienated. So he felt very, very lonely. So that's also inspired me to put that character Chill in the screenplay.
This is one of the strongest themes that I found in your film. This you know, the theme of loneliness, because on one hand it's the solitary loneliness that one keeps within himself. You know, in the case of Pak, you know, and particularly of Hoi, of denying one's identity. Then there's the almost generational loneliness that happens when, you know, when the generation gap ostracizes one demographic from the other. And then there's the larger social loneliness and abandonment that you see because of the lack of recognition that in this case the elderly gay community is not receiving from the state. And yet the film is not tragic. It's not. It is bittersweet, I would say. And so I wanted to ask how you navigated, how you thought of perhaps balancing out the very obvious, almost critical, negative aspects of the story with the beautiful tenderness and almost kind of life affirming events that happened to Pak and Hoi.
Yes, I think when after I did the research and the interviews, I felt that for a lot of them the story is very, very sad, and their experiences are very sad. So I felt that, wow, if I put it in a screenplay, then you know, it's possibly too much. So the only way that I thought would make it a little bit more interesting for the viewers is to put a romance in it. So that's why I put Pak and Hoi falling in love, because none of the people that I interview, you know, actually fell in love with someone of their own age. And I particularly wanted to do that instead of having someone falling in love with a younger guy, because I felt that we also want to celebrate that even though you are older, you can still be attractive. And also, you still desire sex, because a lot of the times people think that when you reach a certain age, you have no desire anymore, and that is not the case. So therefore, I purposely put the romance in it, and I think that helps, to make the viewers see that how lonely they are as well. And these two guys are so good for each other, and what a pity it is that, they have to give up the relationship for their families. The other thing that I also try to do is to show that they also, although they have a lot of tension with their families, maybe with the wife or with the son, but there's also still a lot of love in there, in that kind of relationships, or mutual respect at least. So, so that makes it even harder for them, because it's not like their family life is that totally awful. There's also a certain amount of affection in there as well. So that makes it more of a struggle for the two main characters.
And actually, speaking of, I wanted to perhaps talk a bit more about the themes of family and the spaces that the notion of family kind of inhabits, and how they're represented in the film. On one hand, you have the domestic family, which is a space of, I would say, tradition, of support, of resonance, respect. And then you have, for instance, the other, the more kind of general communal family, which is represented by Hoy's son's church group, which kind of strips away any individuality from the self. And you contrast these very beautifully with the family that Puck discovers in the sauna, in the actual community center group. Yeah, can you talk a bit about that?
Yes, I think yes. I think that was the underlying theme, is to explore what is family, what does family mean to people anymore. I mean, you have one hand, you have Pak, who is very traditional and have sacrificed everything for this family that he has built. But eventually, does it bring him happiness? I mean, he has all the classical things that a Chinese father would want, respect from his kids and his wife as well. And then on the other hand, you also have Hoy, who brought up his son all by himself, and the son eventually promised that he would never send him to an elderly home. So this, again, for a Chinese parents, is almost like a holy grail, something that they really would want, because their son or daughters will look after them for the rest of their lives. But yet again, that doesn't bring them happiness as well. And on the other hand, you contrast it of the time that they spend at the social group, or in the gay sauna, where they can be relaxed and with each other and be happy, or just Pat and Hoy at home cooking a meal, a very, very simple meal, and that kind of domestic bliss. So just by showcasing all this different kind of using actually meals, eating, in order to contrast all the different kind of families and how that varies, and for the audience to see whether they are happy or not, what they gain from each meal and what they lose in each meal as well. So using the dining scenes as a motive, where kind of like contrasting and then comparing the situations that they are in.
And I want to talk a bit about style, because it's very easy, but it's not necessarily very easy, but the first thing that actually hits you about the film is the performances, the story. But the style of the movie, the tone and the rhythm is there very subtly, and actually helps you to really kind of internalize all of these elements. I wanted to talk to you about the rhythm of the film, which is quite settled in. It's very it almost is in sync with the characters themselves, with Pak and with Hoy. I would say it's in sync emotionally. And then I also wanted to talk a bit and kind of link the question about your approach to style, and kind of draw a parallel to the sauna scenes, which, your attention to detail, to caresses, is very important, I think. And I think, you know, your own style to the film has a very similar approach to the way that you write the characters and you write their kind of narrative arcs. You know, very gentle, very delicate, gestural, I would say.
Yeah, I think because for them it's about restraint, really. I think particularly for Pat, because for all his life he has spent a lot of his energy suppressing who he is, and eventually when he finds love, I don't think he will kind of like break out and suddenly, you know, become a different person or be very, very passionate. So he will still try to cover it up and be very restrained about his emotion. So that's how I relate to Taibo, the actor, saying that that's how you should play it. It's like there's all this kind of emotion bubbling inside, but you have to try to cover it up and with a very kind of like almost respectable front, and not to let it, you know, go two-way out, you know. So so that is also the style of the movie. I think because I always like Ozu movies, so I feel that this story should be told in that kind of very Ozu, very gentle, in a very soothing kind of rhythm, and a lot of pain and regrets, but we do not really see it, but we can feel it. It should be sort of like quietly and slowly seeping through, and let the audience feel it with them. And I think also I want to be respectful to the original source material, which is the book, is because it is oral documentation of these guys. So I also want the movie has a very realistic, almost semi-documentary feel to it, and everything is not very dramatic, and it's you know, more lifelike. So I think that plus the Ozu kind of restrained, kind of soothing rhythm that matched together and created something that is real, but at the same time as poetic, because that's how I talk to the DP as well. It's like we want to find a location which is very, very Kowloon, not even Hong Kong. So it's like on the, you can say, wrong side of the track, something that's very blue collar, something you don't see the high-rise buildings and all that. But at the same time, we want to make it romantic and poetic at the same time. So trying to capture a very raw sort of like environment, but induce a certain romance into it. So when we look for locations and the styling and the way that we shoot, that is something that we have in mind.
And actually, this reminds me of the last couple of shots of the film, which are, you know, are the empty spaces that really are. I mean, it's almost like a beautiful poetic ode to the people that inhabited them, you know, and the history of emotions and of feelings and everything, like, you know, that they have accumulated in those spaces.
Yeah, I think particularly the one shot that I have in mind that I told the DP that I think we need to capture is the shot that of the shadow of the leaves on the cement floor, because that particular one image really reflects how I feel about them or their relationship, which is something that's very beautiful. It dances, but at the end of the day, it's only a shadow. So, you know, that is the kind of image that I felt that really captured their relationship. And so therefore, you see that image again and again in the movie.
You know, on this note, because it is at the end of the film, I wanted to, I mean, not necessarily didactically discuss the ending, whether it's a positive or, you know, or a negative, or like, you know, whether it's a happy or a sad, tragic end. Because one could say it is tragic. You know, they need to let go of the relationship that they have started to build and return to their families. And yet at the same time, it's a positive just for the sheer fact that they actually met and experienced this together. And for Park's almost return to look for Hoi, perhaps even spiritually.
Yes, be all those things, right? Because the ending, you can also see that Pat goes back. Maybe he will, you know, sort of like, because like Hoi all the time is saying, why do you come to church with me? Why do you come to church with me? Eventually, Pat does go to church, although not with him. But also with him, because what does he do? He sits there, all he can think about is Hoi. So in a way, he also goes to church with him. So he, so physically he's alone, but, emotionally he's not alone. So yes, it is a sad ending in the sense that they, kind of broke up and he sort of like move on with his life. But also emotionally, it's a bittersweet ending because, like you said, that they met, so, sometimes memories is all we have, especially when you get to a certain age, you don't have to be with that person, but a sweet memory sometimes is enough already. And particularly for Pat, this being almost, you can say, is his first love. So, I'm sure he's glad that he has, this memory. But I think also it's not actually an absolute ending either, because like you can, if you want, reimagine what happens if he leaves the church. He could make a call to Hoi, they could restart the relationship, or maybe even, run away. But you have to consider, if they do that, what sacrifices he will have to make, what kind of dilemma he's facing. That means that he will have to give up everything that he has spent his whole life building in order to achieve what he deeply wants, deeply desires. And that might not be ideal either. So either way, even though he say run away with Hoi, it will still not be a happy ending for these people. Yeah.
But I would say that this bittersweet quality of the film, I think by the sheer nature of the film being made, and especially in the tone that it was made, because of your vision, I think it is a happy occurrence, I would say, because we are being shown, I wouldn't necessarily perhaps say for the first time, but you are giving voice, and you are displaying a certain dignity and offering a spotlight to a demographic that is very rarely being explored and showcased. And I think that alone in itself is an accomplishment, I would say, or a victory for the human spirit.
I think, thank you. I think particularly one of the interviewees who came to watch the movie, and afterwards, he's already in a wheelchair, actually. So when I talked to him, and then he was crying, so I was thinking, oh my God, I hope you didn't get offended. He said, no, it's just that all my life, I have suppressed this for so long. I don't really tell many people about all these secrets of mine, and now actually seeing it blown up on big screen and kind of like doing our experiences justice, I feel very touched. So he was crying like that, and I just felt, okay, this is something that is special, because I'm able to tell their stories, and then they feel that their stories has been told in a manner that they approve.
And by extension, I think it's also the type of film that almost kind of creates a bridge for heteronormative audiences. You have made a film that avoids all of the stereotypes that the straight cinema would have about gay life. And I think you have made this very, there's a universality to their love, to their social condition, that I think kind of bridges the gap between queer audiences and straight audiences as well.
Yes, I think the movie, we were very lucky, because like after Busan, the movie got nominated in Taiwan, 5 Golden Horse nominations, and then in Hong Kong, 9 nominations. So for a small LGBT movie about elderly people, which is very kind of like fringy, immediately put our movie in kind of like in the mainstream commercial status. So we were able to open in 60 cinemas in Hong Kong. And afterwards, a lot of the audience came up to me and said to me, it's like, this is the first gay movie I've ever seen. And I always imagine that gay people are like hairdressers or fashion designers, very flamboyant. I have a particular image about them. But actually watching your movie made me realize that it could be gay people, could be anywhere. It could be just my doorman. It really could be the taxi driver. And also because I could never see them as gay, it's mainly because they have hide it so well, because they have all these struggles that they have that they don't realize. So it was very, very touching to see that people actually open up and come to see this movie. And because it won awards, so people were curious to go and see why, and therefore it opens the door for them to see stories about people that otherwise they would never have gone to the cinema to watch.
I'm really happy to hear about this this ripple effect, and I hope that more people see it, more people recommend the film, because I think it's important to not just like I said, not just for its LGBTQ specificity, but I think it is a beautiful and important story about being true to oneself and the difficulties of that are associated with that.
Yes, and I think our older generation and elderly people as well, because a lot of the times when we treat with our parents or our grandparents, we really just see them in one dimension. Really, it's just like, okay, they're my parents. We are kind to them or pay your respect, and we just say, oh, have you had dinner? Have you taken the medicine? Have you seen a doctor? And we feel that we have done our duty. But actually, we don't really see them as three-dimensional people who really, just like us, who wants to be desired, who still have all these things that they want and maybe regrets in life, and maybe they have secrets. So they also need that kind of care and treat them as people rather than just this parents or grandparents that is just put on a pedestal. So I think it's something we kind of forget as well, and it's not that far away for us to get to that age, really. So, and I don't think we will change that much, really.
And they're also not very far away, because we each have hopefully we have those people in our families, and I think what once the film kind of settles into you, what you realize is the weight of one's individual history that exists within of course the elderly people, but also the more kind of weighty psychologically like there's a certain heaviness and a certain the regrets, the weight of memories as you get older just becomes so much more emotional and almost effective to yourself, and just to kind of go back to Park having kind of given everything up to come to Hong Kong and rebuild his life. The decision for him to to kind of go off with Hoi is not easy. I mean, like you said, he had an entire life that he built from scratch. It's yeah. But so on that note, I will encourage our viewers to pass on the good word, invite more people to see Twilight's Kiss, and we really hope that the ripple effect of the film will continue, even beyond this year. So Ray, thank you very much for the film.
Thank you so much. I'm glad you like it.
And thank you for taking your time and talking with us.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
我嚟香港嗰陣時，乜都冇，兩手空空。
預備好3、2、1，笑。
而家有層樓，有頭家，都算係咁啦。
爺爺，你肯退休嘅話，日日都可以接麗麗啦。
退休，唔好
啩，日日望天打卦，而家咪幾好？
喂，老豆啊，做個成世仲唔夠啊？你趁住而家仲行得走得。
你成日嚟呢度啊？你個樣啊，就似結咗婚。我以前呢20幾年，每日踩18個鐘，我唔係走寶。家仔你哋兩個應該都唔止10年啦，嗬？做咩唔落車啊？唔捨得我啊？
係喎，你呢排做護理經做成點啫？
你點會知啫？冇可能嘅。我個仔翻嚟啊，我唔同你傾住，我下次再約你啊。
上堂啊，同志遊行嗰陣時就俾爛鬼電視台影到我啦，啲街坊一見到就個個喺度唱我啦。
如果連你都唔講嘢，咁將來邊個代表我哋上去出聲咧？為咗前途啦，而被逼結婚，做咗我哋圈中所講嘅直人，好不容易捱到晚年啦，但我哋都唔可以做翻我哋自己。
我而家揀老公唔係男朋友啊，嫁咗係一世㗎啦。
如果係整形啊，下世都會撞得翻嘅，唔使驚。